Good morning, welcome back to In the Garden. Paul and Taft here. And Paul, now that we're moving through the spring season, we already have most of our spring crops in the ground. Well, we just can't sit back and relax now and wait for them to be ready.
That's right.
We've got to start thinking about our summertime crops.
That's right, and it's an interesting transition because especially if you have a small garden space, you may still have a lot of spring stuff in there. You got to make room for the summer stuff. Summer gardening in this area is the most popular time of year. So when you think summer gardening, what do you think? Tomatoes, of course.
Yes.
Peppers, eggplant. So what I want to address is that which one of these summertime crops are best planted from seed and which ones are best planted as transplants.
Okay.
So the tomatoes, for sure, you want to plant from transplants because it's way too late to start from seed. When it comes to seeds, because they germinate so quickly, beans, corn, cucumbers, okra, your favorite,
My favorite, yes.
and any type of the summer squashes. I've got zucchini and some crooknecks and all that. But these will germinate in warm soils. And by the way, our soil temperature is warming up well into the 60s, and who knows? I mean, we were talking earlier about it doesn't look as though we've got any threat of really cold temperatures from here on out.
Yeah, so it looks like we're finally into the spring pattern and the cold weather's behind us.
Okay, you're on record, you know that.
I know I'm on record, yes.
But I think you're right. I mean, the pattern seems to suggest that we're in the all clear. So in warm soils, these are going to pop in some cases, 48 hours, 72. Okra might take a little bit longer, but that's why I like to grow them from seed, because then you're growing them right where they are. Now, transplants are available, but you run the risk of transplant shock when you take a transplant and put it in the ground. Most of the herbs go ahead and grow as transplants.
Okay.
Parsley, for instance, one of my absolute favorites, is very difficult to germinate. So it's really best to go ahead and do that as a transplant. The ones that do okay from seed, basil actually will come up pretty quickly. Dill is another one that'll come up pretty quickly. So those you could go ahead and experiment with seeds if you want. But the transplants are so readily available that and easy to plant. The biggest thing again is just figuring out where you've got the space. So if you've got lettuce coming up, then just remove some of the lettuce and go ahead and stick a transplant or pop some seeds in there, because by the time the lettuce is up, that plant, well, you'll be harvesting lettuce, and then that other plant, whether it's squash or cucumbers or whatever, will be taking over that space.
Is there anything soil-wise that we need to really concern ourselves about? If we have potatoes or we have onions and then we plant one of these crops in there, is there going to be any problems with the soil where one may need something a little more than another, or can you pretty much just put them together and they'll be in good shape?
You can pretty much just put them all together.
That's what I like to hear. That's easy.
You know, I mean, I amend my soil with so much compost that I really don't rely on fertilizer very much at all. The biggest issue would be diseases. If you've planted tomatoes in a particular spot and you've had issues with blight, any number of different fungal diseases, then you might want to consider not planting in that same area.
Okay.
And that would include the peppers and the eggplant as well, because they're all part of the same family. That's a real challenge if you've got a small garden, though. I mean, it's hard to rotate crops in a small garden.
What about in pots with some of these? I mean, obviously with the herbs you can put those in pots, but really any of these you can put in pots?
Absolutely. I mean, there are very few vegetables that you cannot grow in containers. Obviously, if you're talking about something like tomatoes, unless it's one of the little patio tomatoes, you're going to want a pretty big pot.
Yes.
But peppers, eggplant, everything. I mean, I've seen corn growing in pots. You name it, you can grow it in a pot.
So maybe if you don't have the room in the garden, that's an alternative that you can do. Maybe put it on the patio and just bring it out into the sunshine.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right. Well, you know what? We got to get ready for the summer season right now with planting some of these summer crops in the spring. And again, your spring crops are already looking good. I can just imagine what the summer crops are going to look like.
Well, the onions are up, the potatoes are coming up, so we'll be eating good soon.
Sounds good. Again, I'll bring the skillet.
There you go. And bacon grease.
And the bacon grease, yes.